Hey everyone, my name is Dr. Dolores Tarver. I'm a licensed psychologist here in Georgia, and it is time for the tea. Tea time is where I like to share mental health moments with people to help you be your best self. So what we're going to be addressing today is giving people a peace of your mind versus having peace of mind. So I know that you all are familiar with the words peace, P-I-E-C-E and P-E-A-C-E, and that they're homophones. That's your English lesson for today. And those are words that have the same sound, but they have different meanings, right? So let's talk about what that means. So here we are approaching Thanksgiving, and this is usually a holiday that people have mixed emotions about. It may be that there's grief or loss that people are dealing with, and this is the first time that they will be without loved ones on the holiday, and so it can be really tough for people. Or it can be where it was a special tradition and things are changed this year because of coronavirus, and maybe we won't be able to see each other in the same way. Maybe I have now a family of my own and we have other traditions that we want to engage in, and that can be a source of conflict for some other family members. Maybe there is a person who I have conflict with that could potentially be at dinner for Thanksgiving, and I'm just really feeling uncomfortable being there with that person. Maybe there is some hurt or some pain there. Perhaps there was an instance of abuse there, sexual, physical, emotional, otherwise, and so I don't want to be around that person, and so the holiday fills me with anxiety. Maybe I'm the host for Thanksgiving and people usually come to my house, and this year with coronavirus, I am terrified to have all these people in my home, and there is an expectation that I will be hosting, and I don't know how to talk to people about that. Or maybe I'm such a perfectionist that I'm a stickler for details, and so having these kind of events causes me to obsess and ruminate to the point where I'm breaking out in hives. I've now gotten sick because I'm trying to make sure everything is perfect. Perhaps Thanksgiving is a time of financial stress for me this year. Maybe I haven't been able to work as much. Maybe there's been some layoffs, some underemployment, unemployment in the family, and we don't have the financial resources to even go anywhere for Thanksgiving, much less host anybody, and I don't know how to talk to people about that. Or perhaps every time I come for Thanksgiving, the conversation turns to me and my relationships. Who am I dating? Why am I dating this particular person? Haven't I grown out of that yet? Wasn't that just a fad? And I don't want to have those conversations. And then on top of that, this may be the first gathering of the family since the election. And we know that everybody in the family may not have had the same perspective about the election. So there may be some concern about that. We know that politics can cause a lot of conflict in families, particularly when there are large gatherings and a lot of opinions. Or maybe this holiday, we just are uncertain about the future and we just don't want to go anywhere. Maybe that we don't have necessarily any huge reason for why we don't want to go, but we just don't want to go. And we don't feel like it's okay to say to people, I just want to stay home. Maybe I want to be right here in my safe space this year and not have to worry about engaging with other people. So let us take it back to giving people a piece of my mind and having peace of mind as we address some of those different scenarios. So giving people a piece of my mind, what might that look like? And essentially that's just a phrase that we use. Some people may say you tell someone off. Some people may say you're stern in your tone. Some people may say that you weren't sugarcoating it, that you were telling it like it was, and you were making sure there weren't any filters on what you said. Young folks say you got that smoke for them today. So that's giving people a piece of our mind. And I will not tell you that at times we do that, and sometimes that is the way that we're able to get our point across. But how does that affect other people? Does that really give us what we need in the moment? Those are questions we need to ask ourselves. So let's talk about those scenarios. The financial situation. I'm in a place this year where financially I simply cannot afford to come to Thanksgiving or host Thanksgiving at my house. and I really don't want to have a conversation with you about it. So what might I tell you if I'm giving you a piece of my mind? It ain't none of your business. I ain't got money like that. I don't know what y'all spend y'all coins on, but you ain't paying no bills over here. So why are you inviting me for something when you know it's a pandemic going on? Okay, so I'm giving you a piece of my mind. And I'm giving you information, but it is conflictual in terms of now this person may be defensive about it. Let's say you have that creepy relative, the one that hugs you, but it just doesn't feel like a relative hug. It feels almost like they trying to undress you, and they just make you feel sick every time you see them. And they come to approach you, get your little nasty, creepy hands off them. You're always trying to hug somebody, go sit down somewhere, right? We have seen people do that in movies. So that is a way to give people a piece of my mind. Maybe I'm tired of you asking me about my relationships and my status and my sexual orientation or whatever it may be. And I say to you, do I ask you about your relationships? Mind your business. If I want you to know something, I'll tell you. Get on somewhere with that. I ain't talking to you about that now. Maybe I am not wanting to host Thanksgiving this year, or I want us to move it outside. And I say to you, oh, y'all nasty. You know y'all nasty folks. You don't wash your hands. I don't know about you and who you might be bringing and where y'all been and what y'all be doing. Anybody coming over there for that, right? That could be a way to address it, giving people a piece of your mind. But is that going to allow you to be able to have peace of mind? Peace of mind allows us to be able to have calmness, allows us to be able to literally have that peace, to not be bothered, to be at rest with something. And some of you may say, hey, when I get it off my chest, I feel just fine. But then the aftermath of that is now there's hurt in the family. And now some of y'all may say, I don't care. But if you are trying to have peaceful relationships, or you just don't want to have that level of stress, get your blood pressure up, cause arguments and fights, you want to be able to express yourself, but you want to be able to do so in a way that allows you to remain calm, allows you to be able to express your point, set a healthy boundary. Boundaries are important, but also be able to still have relationships with people moving forward. And everybody's different. And I'm not telling you there is a right or a wrong way to do things, but I am telling you that anything that we do, any behavior that we have, it has consequences. And so we just want to be mindful and making sure that the consequence of whatever the behavior we engage in is something that we're going to be able to live with. So let's talk about how I can have peace of mind to be able to say what I need to say and set these boundaries. So let's look at the same examples, if you will, the financial stress, right? So a lot of us may be dealing with just not being able to do the same things we were able to do in previous years. This year, we may not know what's coming forward, and so we may be mindful of the money that we're spending. And so we have a budget, and we're just kind of tightening things up just in case, right? March caught us off guard last year, and so, or this year, March caught us off guard when the pandemic hit, and some of us weren't prepared financially. And so we want to make sure that in the event something happens this upcoming year, we're a bit more prepared. So a way to talk to people about that is, hey, my financial situation has changed, so I'm not going to be doing some of the things this time around that I've done in previous years. I appreciate you thinking about me. I appreciate the offer. We won't be joining or participating with that this year. And thank you for understanding. And I like this whole thanking people after the fact. One, because then people are less likely to come back and say something else because you've already please and thank you manners, right? Here in the South, we love our manners. So if I say that thank you piece, it almost kind of ends the conversation. It allows people to have a bookend that we're not going to talk about this anymore. I've already told you thank you in advance. So we're essentially done. And then people are like, oh, okay then. And they move on. That isn't always the case, but sometimes that can be helpful. The same is true for any other of these examples. If you don't want to address politics during this Thanksgiving celebration, because we all know that everybody has opinions and they're entitled to their opinions, but is this a correct venue for that? Especially when we're not going to agree. We're in different places with it. And it's okay to say to someone, I respect your opinion. I respect the ability for you to have an opinion. But we know the way that this turns out is we end up getting in a disagreement. It affects people and they don't end up having a good time. And I don't want us to not have a good time this holiday. This year has taught us that relationships are important and we need to take full advantage of the time that we have together. So let's agree not to bring that up and focus on some of the joys that we've celebrated and experienced over this year. Thank you so much for attending to that, right? So then people are able to say, okay, so really it's not that you want to shut me down. It's simply that you're recognizing not the time, not the space. And this is true for relationships that you don't want to talk about. I appreciate you caring about me being in a relationship with someone and wanting me to be able to have that. I will let you know if there's anything that I want to communicate so you don't have to keep asking me. I appreciate it. Right? That creepy person in that family that's touching you. Hey, I don't mean to be rude, but it really makes me uncomfortable when you touch me. Could you please stop doing that? Thank you so much. Those kind of things can happen quietly. And I know there are some people in our families, and we know that we have family secrets, and there are things that we do not address. And there is a time and a place for everything. I want it to be a safe time for you. And I want it to be a place where you feel like you're going to get support. And if we're honest, our families are not always that place. Sometimes our families will stick up for people that they know have done things to hurt other people in the family. We know that we have cycles of abuse that occur in our families, and people do not speak up for folks who have been sexually abused, sexually assaulted, attacked physically. We know that. So let's not put ourselves in a situation where we're going to feel abandoned or minimized or dismissed. Instead, let me position myself to where I don't have to interact with this person, and I set a boundary with them quietly. No one else has to know, and I can be over in this space. And it's so important during this time when you say have peace of mind that you create a plan. Always have a plan for how you're going to address situations that cause you to be uncomfortable, can cause you to be angry, or any kind of response that makes you feel out of what you feel like is your comfort zone. Talk through it with your other family members who's going with you. Hey, here's the exit word. Here's the safe word. If I say this word, grab the stuff, hit the car, let's go. So that way you know that you already have an ally in that situation. There are going to be some times where we just are not comfortable. And COVID right now is a time for a lot of people and we're not comfortable. And family members can get really, I think, defensive about us wanting to change things up. So maybe I was the person that hosted Thanksgiving, big Thanksgiving every year. And this year I'm like, it's coronavirus. The numbers are going up and I just don't feel comfortable with all these people in my home. But you know, when you say this to a family member, they're going to come with the guilt, the manipulation, and try to attempt to persuade you to have this event anyway. And you simply say, hey, I know that every year I do that, but this year I'm going to do something different. We're going to have something small, just us family at home. But if someone else in the family wants to have a gathering, guys, go ahead. I'm happy to share recipes or give you information. We are not going to attend because we don't feel comfortable coming out, and we respect that everybody's in different places with that, and we appreciate you respecting our boundaries around that. You don't have to argue with people about going into their homes for a family gathering if you don't feel comfortable. If you don't, you don't. Simply say, hey, I understand, and want you guys to have a great time. Sorry I miss you. We'll see how next year is. Love you guys. Thank you so much for understanding. Or maybe we'll talk about having this event outside, and that may be the way that I get my peace of mind. Let's have it, but here are my parameters. Or I may say to people, hey, we're going to be wearing masks and we're going to be distant. We don't mean to be rude or disrespectful to people, but that's one of the ways that I keep my family safe and one of the ways that I want to keep you all safe, and I appreciate you respecting those boundaries. And again, that thank you, I appreciate you. Please, that can make a difference just in terms of softening things. And when people want to continue to have that discussion, you are well within your rights to say, you know what, I recognize that we're just in different places with that, so let's not continue to talk about it. Hey, it was good to see you. I'll talk to you soon. You take care. You can end that conversation. And people will call you, they'll text you. You don't have to respond. If you already know what it's going to be and they're going to try to manipulate you or guilt you into things, you don't have to engage in any of that at all. So what I'm trying to communicate to you, if nothing else, for this holiday, do what allows you to feel comfortable. If you have changed traditions, you want to do something different, you can do that. If you don't want to go anywhere, you don't feel comfortable being out during the pandemic, you can do that. If you don't want to address politics during your Thanksgiving meal, you can do that. If you're not financially in a place to be able to handle things right now in terms of spending money, even in this, it goes for Christmas as well, then you don't have to spend that money, right? Whatever works for you is what works for you. And it doesn't matter if someone else's experience is different. And this goes back to empathy that we talked about last week, right? To be able to understand that even though that's not my experience, that's this person's experience, and I need to honor their experience. So if you are looking for some suggestions about how to cope with those things, there is a great book by Henry McLeod called Boundaries. There's a book and a workbook, and those two resources can be really, really helpful in terms of being able to learn how to set these healthy boundaries during the holidays. So again, you have an option to give people a piece of your mind or to have peace of mind. And when you can, choose peace. It feels so much better in the body than giving people a peace of mind, even though I know sometimes we want to tell people how we really feel about them. But again, all behaviors have consequences, and we want to make sure that whatever those consequences are, they are things that give us peace when at all possible. Okay, guys, be encouraged.